Maybe while we're waiting for Mike, I can, in case people haven't seen yet, I can show what Engineers.SG actually is. Does everyone know what Engineers.SG is?
No.
No? Okay. So maybe it's good that I'll show it then just before Mike comes. So, oops, no, not that. Yeah. Oh, here's Mike. So yeah, this is Engineers.SG. It's essentially a centralized place for tech talks in Singapore. And I guess sometimes also outside of Singapore. So you can see, okay, this is the latest talk. So it's on 6th of March. And so if you're curious to learn about assembly language, which is that crazy low level language we were talking about batch 1 the other day, there's some people giving talks, build a Facebook, right? So this every few weeks there's a new talk and someone will volunteer to be a speaker. And it's all consolidated here on this website. Yeah, we can ask Michael a bit more about the inspiration for this and how it came about during the chat. Hey, Mike.
Hi, hello, sorry.
Hi, how are you?
I lost track of time, sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Thanks for being here today.
Hello, hi.
This is Rocket Academy and these are our students and instructors.
Ooh, hi.
Hey, awesome. So maybe what we can do is, Mike, I can briefly introduce the group here to you and then briefly introduce you and then we can take it away with the Q&A. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So thanks, Mike, for being here. This is Rocket Academy and our students. We have 2 batches of bootcamp students here with us today. One batch started in October and they're graduating in April. And the other batch started in January and they're graduating in June. So there are 2 batches. Some are closer to graduation than others, but all of them are curious about working in industry as software engineers because everyone here is a career switcher. And several of the students are actually interested in working at GovTech. So I think also would love to hear your perspective on working at GovTech as well as the software industry in Singapore as a whole in general.
Okay.
Great. And a bit about Mike. Mike has been is a very experienced software engineer, currently one of the lead engineers at GovTech, and is very involved in helping develop and grow up the Singapore tech community. So over the past few years, Mike has spearheaded initiatives like starting Engineers.SG, which is that platform that we just saw that is a place where the Singapore tech community can come together and share knowledge, as well as initiatives like JuniorDevSG, which is a mentorship program for junior developers in Singapore to help them learn the best practices and get a good footing in the industry. Yeah, so super excited to welcome Mike today. Interesting fun fact about Mike is that Mike was also not a CS student in university back in the day. I think you studied history and political science, right, Mike? But then soon after graduating, became a software engineer and has been a software engineer since then. So yeah, I think a lot of relevant experiences and a lot to learn. So very excited to welcome Mike today. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, hello. Yeah, so what do you guys want to know?
Awesome.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, I think we'll just kick off the question.
I'll start off. My name is Kenrick. I'm actually from batch 1. The question I have is that, so as you didn't have a CS degree, what advice would you give like someone who's just starting out? Like, should we like when we take our first job, should we like start off with a specialized path, or would we like should we like take on a role that like still allow us to choose between back end, front end, or even like full stacks? Should we always have that option open, or is it like should we just straight go for a specialized path?
I would say keep your options open. I think the work that you get to do, sometimes you don't get to choose. Sometimes you get to, once you join a company, they may hire you because they see that you may have potential in certain areas. So they'll probably want you to work on that first. But keep your options open. I think if you are open, then you are able to learn and have an open mind about new technologies and different things, right? So I think it's keep yourself open and also figure out what you like. I think throughout my career, I have to kind of go through. I've done like front end, back end, I've also run my own company, joined a digital consultancy, and like a digital agency as well. So throughout all these different parts of my career, I've figured out what I like, what I didn't like, and then once you get more experience in other areas, or you figure out what you like or don't like, then you can kind of like dive deeper into that. Right. So I think most of us, in at least the people that I find around me, are kind of like T-shaped in terms of their skills. So they have a broad range of things that they know, but there are some specific things that they are a bit more have more depth in. So I think if you're new in your career, just be open, learn everything, and when opportunity arises, then you pick up as new knowledge, which is great. And then as you go along, you figure out what you like or don't like, and then you can choose to specialize if you want to, or you can just continue to be a generalist. I think generalist has a lot of opportunities. You can do a lot of things, especially in a startup where they need a lot of generalists in startups. So yeah, I think specialization probably when you become a bit more senior. Uh, Again, it all depends on the company. Sometimes the company you like what is the what the one of the startups I joined. I started there as a backend developer doing PHP, and for a year in, our mobile developer quit. So they told me, hey, I don't think we want to hire anyone else now because cash flow, and they're like, would you like to pick up Objective C, iOS development? Yeah, sure, why not? I had an open mind at the time to try different things, even though it was a bit of a leap of faith. But I guess once you know, I think what you know about a programming language, usually there are a lot of transferable knowledge to other languages. Like a variable, in PHP, how do you do a variable how do you declare a variable in Objective C? How do so there are some transferable concepts that are applicable across different programming languages. So yeah, then it's all about hard work from there on, figuring out what to do, how to get things done, and building a web application is very different from building a iOS application. So for me, it was a steep learning curve, but it was an enjoyable curve. It was an enjoyable time because I was stretching myself beyond my comfort zone and learning a lot of things. I think I had the benefit of very good teachers at the time because my company was engaged with one of the consultancies, and they had people who knew how to teach me. And even though the mobile developer quit, he was still on contract. So for like 6 months, I was like pair programming with him and learning from him as to basically level up and learn all the iOS stuff. So like daytime I was like pair programming and kind of like learning the stuff. At night I was like walking through tutorials and just just make myself more ready to talk about things at a certain level when yeah. So end of the day, be open. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Michael. What you shared was very inspiring and impactful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Michael. Hi, I'm Alvin from Batch One. Firstly, thank you for founding Engineers.SG as well as organizing Junior Dev Singapore. I think both these platforms have helped improve the tech scene in Singapore greatly. So here's my question. Having worked with many junior devs in Singapore, like leading teams, what are some of the technical practices which you find that are good that we should learn, that junior developers should learn from? And are there any common mistakes that a junior developer that you have seen has made? Yeah.
Okay, technical practices. Wow. I think what I talked about earlier on, being open, I think that's important. I think humility is important. Whereas you're working with a junior developer, I think we all want to teach and we all want to impart knowledge. But if the person is not teachable, then it's very hard for us to help. And also, yeah. What else is there? Technical practices. Know how to, I think, learn how to work with a technical team. I think that's something. I'm not sure how many of you have actually worked with a software team before. I doubt many of you have. But yeah, so software engineering teams and people who work in tech can behave a little bit differently. So they, for example, some of them are very focused on their work and they don't really like distractions. So learning how to work with a team like that is important. So I would suggest that if you are working with engineers, first of all, be humble. Secondly, try whatever task they've asked you to do, give it some time, spend some time to actually do it. Try it first, Google the heck out of it before you even ask for help. I think time management is also important. So if you're doing a very difficult task, you have learning how to break it down in smaller chunks and figuring out how to ask the right questions in Google are very important. So once you figure it out or have figured out the way to test this, but even then you still haven't found the answer, then do ask people for help. I think it's also, first of all, learn how to break a problem down in smaller chunks, time box yourself so that you don't spend too much time on it. The next thing is, if you really cannot figure this out on your own, go talk to somebody. Or so you were talking to your mentor or senior engineer, also be considerate of their time. So basically, like, go figure out when they are free, like or even ask them asynchronously, like through chat, that, hey, I need some help with this, could you like spend half an hour on this with me? And then when you actually do spend the time with him, go through with the person what you have done, the research, what have you done, what you have tried so far, and so that at least they would know, okay, what level you're at, and they will not make assumptions about your skill level. So once that's done, then they'll be at a better place to help you solve your problem. So yeah, learning how to work with an engineering team, a software team is important. So those things I talk about, I think, yeah, because it's a very technical field, so you really want to make sure you have all the bases covered before you really ask for help. Yeah, I think another thing you want to have is be daring. There are no stupid questions at all. So just be daring, willing to ask questions. There might be, for all you know, these are things that the senior engineers are not even thought of. So don't feel shy about asking questions. I think what is more dangerous is to make assumptions and go into start doing something under the impression that already know all the assumptions and things, right? So sometimes you may make wrong assumptions and you may have wasted time. So you want to make sure you clarify and ask questions and make sure you have no doubt about certain things. Yeah, so this is probably two of the more critical skills you should have as a junior developer. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You're like, as a new person in this job, a new career in this career, you have a free license. You have a license to, I don't know. Right? So you have a license to say I don't know, because sometimes ego comes into play, and then senior engineers like me may get into that, oh, I'm a very senior guy, I should know this shit. But the truth is, we all like, we're all still quite clueless sometimes, and we're all human. But yeah, so these are that's technical. I wouldn't say they're technical practices, but more of like how you deal with people, work with people in an engineering field. Yeah, common mistakes. I think when I talk about the practices, you will probably know. You can probably kind of like guess what are the common mistakes. Like number one, you spend too much time on something and you know how to fix it, and you don't ask. So that'll be a problem for your team, because you'll be like wasting time and not figuring out asking people how to solve things. Yeah, so be willing to ask questions, and of course, before you ask a question, make sure you try it out first before you ask a question. So that's probably, yeah, so I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for the insightful sharing. And I think what you have suggested is has been mentioned by Kai during our when we are asking him questions as well. So it's great to know that you guys share the same opinion on this kind of things. So
Great
yeah, I
minds
think
think
that
alike.
will, yeah.
Okay, Ken. Anyone else?
Hey, Michael. Hey, my name is JC. Yeah, I just
Hey,
want to
JC.
ask, what do you think are some of the highlights of your career so far, right? Being in the tech field for so long. Yeah. What are some of the things that you enjoy the most and maybe don't like so much? Yeah.
I enjoy learning. So anytime I go into a new job where I get to learn new things, I think that makes my day. And then every time I get to try new things or new problems I get to solve, I think that itself is a highlight of my career lah. So I started Engineers.SG and JuniorDevSG as a way of solving problems as well, because you see a gap in the industry, you see a gap in their needs are unserved or underserved, so you try to fix those problems. So that's the kind of like the beginnings of JuniorDev and Engineers.SG. Solving problems and learning new things, that's something I would always look forward to every day. And that's why I enjoy and get out of bed to come to work every day also. Yeah. So yes.
Thanks. Just want to ask, like, do you ever feel like there's too many things to learn? Like, do you ever feel like a bit overwhelmed sometimes? Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you
Definitely.
deal with it? Yeah.
Break down the problem one into smaller chunks and solve them one at a time. I think I have a structural mind, so that when I think about things, I try to structure it and break it down the problem into smaller chunks, and that has helped me in figuring out a lot of things in the past few years. Even right now, as I'm taking on the role of a tech lead in my current team, it's a new challenge for me. So because I never actually led a team of this size before, so it was a stretching experience, not just technically but also professionally, as in you take on other responsibilities, not just about technical coaching but also like coaching and helping them with their career and performance at work. So so every new thing you learn, you face, every new challenge you face, I kind of like try to go through it the same way, break it down in smaller chunks and figure out where I can find the answers. There'll always be new things to learn, and I think the moment where you find that there's nothing else left to learn, then that is a very sad day for me, and then I'll have to think about what to do next. Right, because it probably just means I'm in in the comfort zone. I'm in the comfort zone. I need to get out of the comfort zone, right? So it's nice to be in comfort zone because it's meant to be comfortable, but then you're not learning, and that takes the fun out of coming to work every day. So so I think you also want to so when I hit those kind of situations, then I'll think about what I can do to get out of the comfort zone, how I push myself beyond this comfort zone. Are there new things I should learn about? Are there new areas about the business I should know about? Is there any other areas in our deployment environment I should know about? So a lot of these things, there are definitely things you can learn. Don't feel restricted because I'm only a front end person. I shouldn't know about how back end works, or I'm just a back-end engineer. I shouldn't know about how DevOps works, so I don't know about cybersecurity. I shouldn't worry about that. No, I mean, there are the areas they can definitely get into. I mean, again, I talk about the T-shape, right? So that you want to have a broad education in many different areas about tech. You may have a few areas you're strong in. But at the end of the day, you want to have enough knowledge to be of use, not just to your team, but also to the company. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, I think it's always more interesting to get out of the comfort zone than staying inside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael.
Go ahead, Bina.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, Veena here. So I just want to ask, so currently your role is a technical lead, right? So how different it is from the role of a senior developer or a principal developer and a technical lead? So is it the decision making or the architectural decisions? Is that the responsibility of a technical lead? Yeah, I would like to know about that difference in that strategies that you are following.
That's a very good question. I wondered that myself last time when I was like, oh, isn't just a tech lead just like doing all this stuff that senior devs do? It's a bit more than that. There's this whole area of work called non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements are things like scalability, readability, maintainability, all the elitists you would expect in a software stack. So things like scalability would be a question of how fast your app can scale and support a lot of users. That requires thinking not just about the software stack, but also about the DevOps, the deployment environment, the kind of solutions you get for your hosting environment. I'm talking about web applications specifically. But yeah, so these are things that you think about as a senior, as a as a senior dev, you will be the one doing the work, but thinking about those things, how do you go about getting those things done? I think that's part of my role as a tech lead. You can say it's also a software architecture kind of thing. Yeah, it is. I think about architecture. I think about how we should build things better. But I also think about developer experience. Like what are the ways to help my developers improve on their developer experience, not waste time, and get feedback from their tech stack as fast as they can. How do they do TDD effectively? Stuff like that. So even processes like workflow, like processes about development processes, agreement among a team about how we should do things. I think as a tech lead, that's kind of like my role to help the team feel comfortable with working with each other, have processes they can follow, and then even get feedback on how to improve things across the board. So it's like that's part of my role as a tech lead. Yeah. There's also another aspect to it. I think at least it's more of my role in GovTech, where the tech lead is not just a tech lead. You're like a tech lead / manager. So you also deal with like person, like career progression, career development for the staff that's under me. I think not many companies have that combination of like tech lead manager. Usually they have if the person who is a manager is just a manager and not a tech lead. So tech lead for me, yeah. So it's mostly the technical things and the things around working as in the technical team. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Michael. I'm Jeremy.
Hi, Jeremy.
Like you, I also have a poli-sci degree. So seeing your journey and seeing what you have achieved, I find it very inspiring. My question is this. So reflecting on the openness of the industry now versus compared to when you first joined, do you think that the industry is now very open to people like us who may have very unconventional or non-technical backgrounds? And then further contextualizing it to large government organizations like GovTech, how open are they to such people who don't have the traditional science background?
To be honest, when I started out in my career, there's not many Singaporeans around me, so so it's like I'm a rarity, and I work with mostly foreigners, people who are not from Singapore, like Filipinos, Indians, even Australians, and whoever you can find. So I've always at least early in my career is mostly working with expats, and and inherently they're quite open. They'll work with you. They don't look at your degree and say, oh yeah, you're not a degree holder, I shouldn't be talking to you. No, there's no such air. It's more like it's a, meritocracy. Like, you can do the work, and sure they can do the work, and you can do the work, and okay, kudos to you, right? So the kind of, I think it's always, at least in the tech field and in the tech companies I worked in the past, has been kind of like that. It's about what you can do rather than which school you came from and all that stuff. So yeah, so I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, but
Did-
but having said that, because at least in the last 4 years, I work in more corporate environments where, I previously worked in Singapore Power, SB Group, and now currently at GovTech. They there are a bit more trappings of like a traditional corporate kind of a setting where paper degree do matter. So I would say if you are fresh grad or coming from a different degree or something, getting into a corporate environment like this which kind of like looks at your degree and pegs your salary scale based on your degree and everything may not be the best choice, right? That's my personal opinion. If you feel differently, you're fine to try and see what happens, because they'll look at your things like your last drawn pay, your degree, and then kind of peg you according to those scale. Unfortunately, whereas if you join a startup, they're a bit more like, oh, what can you do? You've done this, you've done this, you've done this. Looks good. I think we can definitely give you a job and let you, and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say if you're joining a startup, or it's really, they don't really care, and they are definitely open to people who are willing to, who has that passion to learn and the willingness to get things done. So I think that's what startup companies kind of put a premium on, people who do bureaucracy, that whole thing. Yeah, so yeah, so I guess definitely is more openness, I guess, even in GovTech. They hired me, I don't have a degree, so yeah. But then again, I have a fairly long track record of getting stuff, being in the industry almost 20 years. Yeah, so it's, yeah, I guess they'll be like, oh, you have a track record, I'll just hire you based on that. But then again, I think I've proven myself to be, I hope, quite effective. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely more open. I think, and I think it's about figuring out the right fit. I think any company you're joining, you want to make sure that it's the right culture fit, and they're open to you and stuff. These are things you can ask about the company, whether how they feel about someone who is like you joining the company, and what is the kind of routine and daily routine they have in the company, and the career development opportunities in the company, right? So these are things you should definitely ask and find out when join any new company. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That was exactly what I was hoping to find out. Yeah, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi Michael, this is Joe here.
Hi, Joe.
Building on what you mentioned earlier, right? That for a startup, as long as you can do the job, they really don't care that what is your academic background and so on, right? So the challenge I feel the new grads or career switcher is that getting past recruiters or getting the first call so that you can demonstrate your skill to the hiring manager. So in your experience of working in the field for past 20 years, what would you suggest should be the effective strategy for a candidate to apply for such positions, so that they don't get eliminated, say, just by a framework of recruiter going through resumes and rather more focused to hiring managers? I'm sorry if it is long or
No, it's a interesting topic. Okay, pre-COVID, I would say try and find people who actually work in those companies, and I think referrals do matter in tech companies. If you are a referral, from someone who's already working in the company, it actually gets higher into the pile. Let's put it this way. It will bypass any recruiter who is just keyword matching. So if you can find someone who works in the company you'd like to join and get them to forward your resume, that will also be helpful. Because a lot of these companies, tech companies, also have some form of like referral program where engineers in the company who refer friends or refer people to the company who get hired and confirmed, they do get some remuneration. There's some, so there's a referral fee given to software engineers who refer their friends. So there is an incentive for people who work there to kind of like refer you. So of course, if they find that your referrals tend to be not as good, they probably will like, oh yeah, I'll try a bit. But I guess I guess at least there's a try. At least there's a chance there, right? So, of course, even when you get into higher in the pile, you still need to prove your worth. You still have to prove yourself as that you're eligible. I think the way that connections work in Singapore, they'll get you 1 feet through the door, but then the rest of it is up to you, right? So, with connections in companies, you can probably get your resume higher and closer to the hiring managers. And then how you perform is really up to you. If you really if it's not a good fit or technical fit or whatever, just try something else, right? But at least so that's one thing. The other thing is to learn about the hiring process. Figure out what the hiring process of the company you're trying to get at. Usually, if you already have a friend who's working there, they can already tell you like, oh, you what to expect. Like, there'll be how many rounds of interviews and da da da. I think the same strategy can apply when you're going through a recruiter. The recruiter can also tell you like, oh, these are the things. Also, it's also in the interest of the recruiter to kind of get you hired, right? So in a way, you should ask them about the process and what's it like, right? Although recruiters do tend to be a bit more biased in kind of like, oh, you want to increase your chances, they'll try to either, try to shoehorn you into one of those roles that they think you might fit, which you do not. So you never know. So just be honest. I think if you feel that the role that the recruiter is trying to shoehorn you into is not the right fit, just say it. And yeah, so I guess know about the hiring process so you can be more prepared, and also be prepared with I think each company has their own process. So you got of recruiting. Usually there'll be some automated way of assessing your technical capabilities. Then there's also face to face, and then some coding thing you need to do either before the day of the interview or during the interview. So there's usually a combination of these few things. So just be ready to try whatever. Of course, and if you can do as many exercises as you can, like on Lead Code or HackerRank or whatever. So those would probably be like the first type of test they will send you to do will be those, like Lead Code and HackerRank. They'll be like the first coding test. That's kind of like the most lowest level kind of like validation that you're okay, that you know at least some technical problem solving skills. But beyond that, it'll be like the second or third round will be more like they say you take home assignment that you need to do, and those are usually also like some form of application you need to build. When you do face-to-face interview, they may ask you to just go through your take-home assignment, or they make you work on something together, like some code kata together. So just see, and the reason why they do a face-to-face, when you code review, the reason why they want to code review live, there are two things. Number one is, do you really know your shit, right? You'll be copying, pasting stuff from online and submitting it, right? You never know. So they want to make sure that you actually know your stuff, right? So they would they will work on code together with you to figure out whether you actually know your stuff. Second reason why they do that is to see whether you are compatible in terms of working with someone in the company. because when they do pair programming with you, they work on code together with you. They like to see how you perform when you meet with like unknowns, when you meet with difficult task. How do you go about solving the problem? Like, you look at your problem solving skills. You look at your how well you can interact with them, like the kind of language you use, the words you use. Whether you have a good temperament that could fit the kind of things, the kind of people they have in the company. They might even just throw you a curveball and throw you a very difficult, stressful situation and see how you react in those kind of situations. That's what they do in a face-to-face coding assessment review. So they would see whether you're a good culture fit. I think by the time you reach that point where actually writing code together with someone in the company, you're like 3/4 of the way through. I would say that last 1/4 is about culture fit. So when me as I do recruiting for my company as well, we technical competency capabilities, that's easy to measure. But the most important measure is about culture fit, whether you fit in well and can blend in well, or whether you can adapt well in the company. Like we want to hire you, but we want to make sure you can also survive in this company that you're joining. So that's one thing that we have to be careful of. That could be, if I make a right decision in hiring you, then you thrive in the company. But if we make a wrong decision and you don't thrive, or you become a toxic influence, that's going to be bad. So we want to make sure that. So culture fit is an important aspect of joining any company. So yes, technical competency, and then culture fit. These are the things that we look out for when we're hiring or recruiting someone. Yep.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was helpful.
Yep, no problem. Who's next?
Yeah. Hey, Michael. My name is Ian.
Hi, Ian.
Yeah, I saw something interesting on your LinkedIn, and it was the philosophy in programming society.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm fascinated. Could you tell us more? Yeah.
You know, you're digging out old treasure. You're digging out old stuff. It's one of my previous companies I started. It was meant to be a teaching. It was meant to be a school to kind of like train people in programming, and specifically PHP development. Yeah, it's ancient history, so I'd rather not talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. No, because I was curious. Like, it seems like you are interested in, I mean, you know, having started Engineers.SG, it seemed like you were a person who was interested in community, interested in exchanging of ideas, and also interested in like, thinking about tech and thinking about thinking. So I was just curious, like, why is that also part of you know, the appeal to learn? Is that also part of what excites you to learn stuff? And also, if you could tell us how you benefited from doing all this stuff, I think it would be quite interesting as well. Yeah, because I don't think I would have. I don't know, if I was an engineer, I don't know if I would have ordinarily, you know, really thought about contributing to the community of engineers. Yeah.
Okay. I would blame all this on my Christian upbringing. So as an evangelical Christian, last time we would have cell groups, and which is like a support group in the religious community. And when I came out to work, I felt there was a need for a secular kind of setup for people who can find support in the community. The first group I started was the Singapore PHP user group. It came out of a pain. Of course, first of all, I was also trying to hire PHP developers. I couldn't find anyone. But secondly, I also felt that, you know, the struggles I went through, I think it would be nice if I could have others that support me in that process of learning. I think so one part is the Christian upbringing. The second part is the open source ethos, open source community. As a whole, we believe that in sharing, we get back more. So the more you share, the more you get back as a community, right? So like that's why open source projects are everywhere, because you build open source project, everyone benefits from it, and the more you get back in terms of like, if everyone is open about sharing their technical stack, it's very transparent and everyone can learn and everyone can benefit from all this technology. So this combination of like, I want to have a support group, also and the other part about open source being sharing and open to sharing. The learning process comes from sharing. So so that's how I started the PHP user group, as a way of like creating an environment where people can learn from each other as an open source initiative, and an area where you can get support. Because I guess when you see that others have gone through the same thing, chances are you would help, you can encourage each other on that journey. So yeah, so these two kind of came together in a way to kind of help me like crystallize this whole idea of like of creating community groups. Yeah, so and when I started doing this, it was also about identifying gaps in the community. So first of all, there was no PHP developer group. Okay, I'll start one. Eventually, how I started the Engineers.SG was because I attended a talk, a panel discussion by a couple of big names in the industry. And one of the panelists was like bemoaning the, like, oh, I can't find engineers. Where are the engineers? I can't find them anywhere. This is like, I can't remember, it's like quite a few years ago. And essentially I was like pissed off by that statement. But because I'm surrounded by engineers. I mean, I have friends who are who run open source meetups, like software development meetups, JavaScript meetups, and so on and so forth. So like I see engineers everywhere. So what's going on here? Why is that person's worldview so different from mine? I figured out the reason was more of a marketing problem. So we don't market ourselves out there, as in all the open source groups. We don't market ourselves as a hip and happening place to hang out on a Friday night or something. But but yeah, so I felt it was like a marketing problem. So we should create more awareness of all the different meetup groups. And because I have a lot of my friends who are like who runs meetups, so I was like, okay, what's the best way I can help you market your group? So I thought, since I have done some videos in the past, I could continue doing that, and I can then record your meetup. So recording the meetup talks will be good, because it also promotes that sharing of knowledge to a wider audience, number one. Number two is when I share that meetup group's videos, I also provide a link back to the meetup group themselves. So the event page. And through the event page, I hope people who watch the video can also discover the meetup groups, and then join the meetup groups future meetups when it happens. So yeah, so that was the reason why I started Engineers.SG, as a way of promoting the different meetup groups in Singapore and to lead people back to that. As a side effect, it also became a very helpful learning resource for a lot of people in the industry. So yeah, and I extended that to also helping conferences by recording conferences. Again, for me, it's about finding a gap, filling up the gap. So it's that whole sense of like, I want to help others help themselves. I want to create a support group. I want to create so how can I support the community? Recording events, recording conferences was also another way of doing that. Again, when I came to Junior Developers Singapore, it's the same thing. So I felt there was a growing number of junior developers in Singapore, and a lot of them are kind of lost or in need of a support group. So how do I build the support system for them? So I looked around, and there was this initiative down in Australia, JuniorDev.io. So I found out who the founder of that group was, and I kind of like, hey, can I kind of start a Singapore chapter for this? And they gave me the blessing, and I went ahead and started this JuniorDev thing. So yeah, so everything I do is about finding a gap that I can fill, I hope to fill, and see what I can do about filling it. And I think what I don't do very well is finding a support team around me to get things done as well. So I think that's one of my failings as a leader, because I am not being able to build a sustainable. I guess in a way it's also my fault. I like to do things that can't scale, and then end up I have to tank it for a large part of the way. So yeah, yeah, and of course, one last bit is about leaving a legacy. So this is I hope what people will remember me by. That's it.
Oh, very cool.
I'm sure. Yeah, there are more than a few of us here who would love to help out with any of the initiatives where you need help, Mike. Okay, whenever you need help. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike. You mentioned that you needed help with some of your platforms. Could you share more about what kind of help you need?
Sometimes I don't know what I don't know, so it's kind of like, you want to help? Let's figure out how we can help. I don't know. It's in a way it's I try to be minimalist in in the things that I do. Partly because Michael can't scale, so I try my best to keep things minimal. Like the meetup groups that we do every month, it's just about me finding a venue, finding speakers, and promoting the heck out of it. And it's helpful when there were people who would help me with finding speakers, finding venue. But now, since everything is online, it's still about finding speakers, but you don't have to worry about venue anymore because everything's online and it's on Zoom, so that's fine. Yeah, but stuff like that. That could be a way, helping find speakers. And there are other ways you can help as well. Like Engineers.SG, for example, I've been thinking about how to reduce the effort needed to publish content. So there have been some options I'm thinking about. Specifically on the technical side, I'll be like thinking about how do I convert the site to the backend, at least the backend systems behind the Engineers.SG site to be more serverless. So I don't have to maintain some servers I am actually maintaining one VPS right now to kind of like upload for video files, upload. I don't need to actually pay that money if I don't need to. So yeah, I mean, this are some of the technical things you can contribute to Engineers.SG. But event-wise, is about finding speakers, finding people who can present, or even help to organize those things. So yeah, that's what I think. But there could be other things they could do. But then again, I'm not as creative. So if others have creative ideas, I'm open to them. I think it's one of my failings. I'm not very creative. I'm very formulaic. I follow a formula in doing things safe way. So I think about tech ladies, for example. Tech ladies, Elisha is so creative in coming up with different initiatives and ideas and stuff. So I'm just not at that level lah. Which is fine. I think it's fine. But at the end of the day, I think, yeah. I hope that answers your question.
I hope some of us will get in touch with you after this and figure out some stuff together.
Yeah, will be great. Anyone else?
Hi, Mike. This is Jerome. I'm just wondering, with so much of the things that you're handling, like all these site communities and your own work, and like you mentioned, like you constantly picking up new stuff. Like, how do you manage all these? Like, I'm sure you have like a process, and especially given your 20-year track record. I mean, there are some things that I believe has kept you going, and also maybe doing better than maybe some of your peers and whatnot. Yeah. So just curious about your process, since you have so much things that you're handling. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. I think how do I put this? learning how to say no is important. I think it's I think Steve Jobs has this similar idea that it's harder, it's much harder to say no than to say yes. So when you find things that come your way, you're like, should I be doing this? It's awesome, it's a new shiny thing, but nah. Sometimes you just have to say no to things. I think being brutally selective about what you want to get involved with is important. What's the other thing? Continue to be curious. I think being curious about stuff, it's important to keep you going. That you like. There's a I like to be task driven as well. Like I want to build. If I want to learn a new thing, like when I was learning about Docker containers and stuff, like let's find some experiment I can do to kind of get proof how to get those things done. So it's about figuring out what is this objective I want to build, then then I spend the weekend kind of put it together. Yeah, I don't do a lot of this, but usually I will like find an opportunity to combine like my passion and like with some social cause or some idea that could help lah. Like Engineers.SG was a bit of the website for Engineers.SG was like okay, I want to learn how to actually build a website using Rails. Let's see how I can go about doing it on my own, and that's kind of evolved into that. What else is there? Yeah, so it's like figuring out how be selective about what you want to learn, and when you want to learn something, I think I like the time box myself. Like, okay, like let's spend a day on this, see how much I can do. And if there's other things I could do on top of that, let's try and figure out and do that on the different days. So my weekends are kind of like I would spend time on my weekends doing experiments like this, smaller experiments to kind of like keep myself sharp and in tune with all the new tech stuff. There's so many new things I like to learn, but end of the day, it's about figuring out a good use for it and making sure that the effort you put in are not wasted. Then again, doing things for fun is also important. So yeah. But I think having balance is important as well. So, like I've been very fortunate to have work in companies in my last like 6 years, where there is peer pressure to leave on time. So there's a respect for work-life balance, so it's which is great. Like the company I joined was a consultancy. It was called Neo Innovation. That company got bought by Pivotal Labs, now Tanzu, I can't remember. Anyway, so it's like you work in there at 6 o'clock, everyone's out the door, and you're like, what? I'm the only person left here, that kind of thing. So it's interesting. So but that also frees you up to think about other things, right? So because you are now free to spend the rest of your day doing other things, and make sure you spend the time well. For me, I would spend time with my family. I think knowing how to balance yourself with your technical things and things you do at work with your loved ones and the people that are around that you care for, even doing things in the community, that's kind of helps you find perspective. I guess if that's the word for it.
Thanks so much, Michael. Very, very helpful. Thanks.
Hi, Mike. Maybe in the interest of time, we'll start wrapping up. But maybe I have a final question for you before we wrap up today.
Sure.
Which actually, yeah. How would you? What general advice would you give to bootcamp graduates who are just about to start on this big career switch journey ahead of them? And how would you recommend that they plan their careers? Because there's so many different. You mentioned joining startups to just get things done and build a track record. But are there other things that students should be aware of when planning how they're going to progress?
I mean, getting into a boot camp, you mean?
I mean, like when they're thinking about the next few years, how should students be thinking about the next few years?
Okay, so I'll just talk specifically about bootcamp graduates. The chance of me hiring you straight out of bootcamp is low. I think we want, at least in my past experience with hiring people out of bootcamp, there are exceptions to the rule, but usually people who come out of boot camps like this, they're still pretty new to the tech and everything. But what is important is to continue to show and demonstrate your curiosity and willingness to learn new things. Continue to build up your portfolio, learn about new technology, even network in the community. So these are kind of like ways that things I would say will be important. As in continue to demonstrate that you're really interested in this field and continue learning. Like one of I will give an example of someone that I hired in SP group when so she came out of boot camp first and but after she finished the boot camp, she continued to learn, and then she went on to a subsequent boot camp to learn other things. So like after that first one, she went on to something else on her own, and went on to a second boot camp. Eventually, she has picked up a fair bit of skill, and when we interviewed her, she was able to demonstrate that capability, and that made it easier for us to hire that person. So yeah, so the boot camp is good. Like a boot camp like this is good to set the foundation. It sets you on a path to get into the industry, but there's no guarantee. So end of the day, you still have to continue learning and continue to level up your skill. I think as I said earlier on, technical competency is important. But the secondly is also about the culture fit, the company you join. Make sure not. I don't think I work very well in a big multinational corporation like Facebook or Yahoo. I've interviewed there and I flunked their exam. So anyway, so yeah. So but then again, it's not really for me. I think it might be for you, which is great, and you should aim for that. Which whatever floats your boat or whatever that makes you happy. But at the end of the day, don't stop learning. Continue to learn, and once you demonstrated that you have the passion to learn, continue learning, and be able. It's like the thing that we consider the most when we hire a career switcher like you is: have you reached your ceiling? Is there more things you can go? Is that have you reached your ceiling in terms of your learning? If you have not, and you can still hit room to learn and pick up new things, and you're willing to go that distance, that's where we think is a good hire. I remember one of the there's a candidate that we interviewed in the past. I felt she has that potential to do this, but my boss felt that she didn't. She has not demonstrated that learning capacity beyond what she has now. So yeah, this is one of those points where me and my boss kind of differ in opinion, but I defer to him, and we chose not to hire that person. And that person has continued to has demonstrated that she is able to learn and continue to. She's also from boot camp background, and she continued to learn, pick up new things, and she now works at Zendesk. So it's something that I aspire to. It was a missed opportunity for us not hiring her, but she has continued to grow and learn, and I think she's in a good place, right? So don't be sad when a company rejects you. I think it's sometimes it's just not the right time, or it's just not the right fit. You never know. But don't be discouraged by that. There are plenty of companies out there who are also hiring. So continue trying. I think on average, people would, at least people in the industry that I know of, they would go through 3-4 rounds of interviews at different companies before, 3-4 companies before they actually find a job. So don't be discouraged if you get rejected by the first one, which probably will happen. But pick yourself up, continue interviewing, continue practicing, continue learning, That's what we look out for. People who is teachable, has learning agility, and has that can do kind of attitude lah. At least that's my perspective of for someone like you who's joining the industry. Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Michael.
No problem.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. I've shared my email in the chat, so if you have any questions, do reach out to me.
I appreciate that.
I'll try my best to respond. Not too sure how much time I have, but yes.
Hopefully some of us can also be helpful to you in the projects that we're doing for the community.
Would be nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
See you. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Bye.